Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News. Back at you again tonight with some climate change discussion. For those that are in the know, it's pretty bad. It's not the happiest of subjects, but that's why we're all here, because we're conversing, commiserating, with the knowledge that there might actually not be much of a chance of controlling. Most would say slim to none, mostly none, but we'll see. Yeah, I actually finished reading that Paul Kingsnorth article, and that is just, I mean, everything Paul Kingsnorth writes is really incredibly deep and I mean, just intelligent, beyond the pale. But yeah, that article just went way deep, and he got to the point of saying that there's just not much, I don't know, I guess there is a camp, and it's a growing camp, and the camp is, not just that it's super bad. The camp is that there's really nothing to be done, and so the best things that you can do are things involving self-preservation, preservation of sanity, preservation, hopefully, of quality of life for a little while, preservation of the natural world where you can, maybe even preservation of older lifestyles, or ancient customs, or whatever it is you might be into that makes you feel a little better about this whole thing. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. It's difficult because I spend most of my days vacillating between, like, let's go, let's fight, and and just trying to live life as best I can, which is it's kind of a struggle at the moment for me to just keep all the plates in the air, all the balls in the air, all the things going, and all the gears spinning. It's just difficult just to get through a day for me. So it is easy for me to slip into defeatism and just, feel like I need to just get whatever it is I can out of the remaining, days or weeks or months or years of this life, and or before things get really weird. Yeah, just try to enjoy the normalcy that we all experience right now as best I can. I feel like part of me just feels like a cop out. I don't know. I'm just trying to do both things at once, so I'm kind of trying to ride both rails, and it's weird, and I know, and I understand there's people on this channel there are two camps. There are the, stop wasting your time talking about a solution, and then there's all we have are solutions, and let's try and find some. And then there's the, I think mostly everybody feels like, yeah, there's no point in trying, and yet, we should probably be trying anyways. At least, for honor, I don't know. I don't know what the, for honor, for some dignity, for some right action, for some moral comfort. I don't know. I just started my timer, so I have no idea how long I've been rambling, and I'm trying to cover so many things in this article. and I'm really trying to not have it be super long. Where did that beginning ramble even go? I don't know, but just to say, if you haven't read the whole Paul Kingsnorth article, it's pretty amazing. It actually makes me want to read more of it. Um, he talks about the fact that every advancement has been, there's the progress trap. Every time we make some progress, it creates another problem, and then we have to have more progress in order to get over that problem, right? So it's just and it's like the problem of success in a way. Like, if you're successful at something, um you have to sustain that success, right? You have to constantly recreate those successful maneuvers. And some people are really just blessed and magical, and they can do that the whole span of their lifetimes. And some people are just like successful in one area of their life or at one point in their life, and then like they basically ride that one successful couple of years like the rest of their life, but nothing else really ever goes right. I think a lot of people experience that kind of life arc, where you're like, yeah, I did something, and then you're like, got to keep this something that I did going, and I don't know, maybe it was just dumb luck, and maybe I just stumbled into something that was cool for a while, and now it's not cool anymore. I don't know. What I find very interesting, just going to pontificate for now. When I was using, I drank and I did drugs for like 18 years, um, which is a long time to spend your life doing that kind of like. But something about that was incredibly redeeming. There was a bunch of redemption in there for me, and there was also the knowledge that somehow creating this roadblock in my life made me work harder, and I knew that instinctually. And so there was kind of like this. It was like I was casting myself into the fire to um, cleanse myself of something. I don't know what it was. I cleansed myself of a lot of maybe stupidity or while destroying my life at the same time. But interestingly, like, I had so much dumb luck in my life when I was using. Just think, people would just give me stuff, opportunities, just things, because I was so kind of pathetic, like I was so like lost and clueless that people were like, here you go, or here's a career, here's a job. And like, as soon as I quit using, like, all of that dried up. And ever since I've stopped using, every single thing that I've done has been an absolute grind. Like, I've had to claw and scratch and struggle and sweat and worry and just absolutely grind myself against the wheel of life in order to get anything done or accomplish anything. And I find that just ironic, I don't know, weird, but like, sometimes I long for the days of just being perpetually hungover and people just call me up on the phone and go, hey, I've got this like really incredible opportunity for you. You want to come down to this like really incredibly famous studio and record and write some songs for some famous people. Like, that stuff would happen all the time when I was drunk, and I would be like, can I stay sober long enough to actually complete this task? And now, like, nobody like calls me up for that kind of stuff, and I'm totally like capable right now of knocking it out of the park, like home run every time. Anyways, whatever. Just telling you stories about my life that maybe don't matter. So let's just get into some climate change news. Starting off with this, it's a sad reality, a troubling trend to see a 97% decline in monarch butterflies. This is from The Guardian. This is from December 8th, 2018. In the 1980s, roughly 4.5 million monarchs wintered in California, but at the last count, there may be as few as 30,000. The hillside groves of eucalyptus trees that tower over the Santa Cruz shoreline would not so long ago be teeming with monarch butterflies at this time of year. Bows would be bent under the weight of black and orange clusters as hundreds of thousands of magical invertebrates nestled into the leaves, waiting out the frost on the California coast before returning north. Just 2 years ago, 8,000 overwintered here, but these days, just more than 1,000 are fluttering amidst the Santa Cruz trees. It's part of a troubling trend. Over the last 2 decades, monarch numbers in the West have declined by roughly 97%. 97. It is a sad reality of climate change, said Anthony Duterres, volunteer guide of the park and biology student at the University of California, Santa Cruz. As he takes a break from guiding school children through a tour, for every little thing that changes, there's not just one consequence, it's a whole chain reaction. According to Xerxes Society, a conservation organization in the 1980s, between 10 million and 4.5 million monarchs spent the winter in California. The last count, so that was in the 80s, the last count conducted annually by volunteers each November showed that in 2018, there may be as few as 30,000 across the state, a number that's 87% lower than just the year before. Oh, we had a lot of reason to suspect that it was going to be a bad year, but we were shocked. 87% lower than in 1 year. If you want to know how the biosphere collapse is going, that's all you need to really know that number. We've had a lot of reason to suspect that it was going to be a bad year, but we were shocked at just how bad, said Xerxes Society conservation biologist Emma Pelton. She said that year-to-year fluctuations can be expected, but this kind of continuous drop-off is cause for concern. It is in the context that the population has already declined 97%. So it's okay if you have millions of butterflies and they drop down a little bit. That's not a huge deal. But if you have 200,000 butterflies to begin with, and you have a bad year, now we only have 30,000 left. Monarchs aren't alone. Insect apocalypse. Indirect effects of massive disappearance considered as a part of the sixth extinction are still unknown. It's unknown. We don't know. Okie dokie. All right, I'm going to move on, and I'm going to link this below. I'm going to switch gears and go to some politics. Macron's defeat in Paris sounds alarm for Europe. So this is about the yellow vests. And people have been talking a lot about this in the comment section. It's very interesting, kind of hand in hand with the Extinction Rebellion going on in Britain, but totally different. So less than a month ago, French President Emmanuel Macron staked his claim as a flag bearer for globalism in a speech to 60 world leaders at the Arc de Triomphe. He eulogized the United Nations and declared nationalism the betrayal of patriotism. That's just it's a weird thing to say. Nationalism is a betrayal of patriotism. I don't know what the fuck that means. Sorry for my language. They're not necessarily the same thing, but they kind of go hand in hand. Last Saturday, tear gas and cobblestones flew in the same part of Paris as protesters trashed the iconic monument and demanded Macron's embattled government withdraw a proposed fuel tax increase. For the first time in his presidency, he backed down. It was a humbling moment for opponents of the populist revolts that spawned Donald Trump. Europe has seen many a critical juncture in recent years, from the Greek debt crisis to the anti-immigrant backlash against refugees and Britain's Brexit vote. Rarely, though, have so many political vultures been circling around one leader with so much at stake for the world order. Poland is flirting with far-right and nationalist parties, cajoled by Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, are plotting a rebellion at European parliamentary elections in May. Meanwhile, Italy has collided with the European Union by taking a defiant stand on its budget spending. I mean, Italy has actually been, the banks in Italy are teetering, and they have been for the last couple of years. Italy's in big trouble. While the EU's erstwhile firefighter Angela Merkel planning to step down as German chancellor, the baton was supposed to pass to Macron to uphold liberal democracy. I wanted to actually get to something in here that was my main point for reading this article. The images televised around the world last weekend were of burning cars in the French capital. The retreat by the 40-year-old French leader was mocked by Trump. Macron admitted via his prime minister that he's not able to connect with the French people. No tax merits, putting our nation's unity in danger. The trouble for opponents of Trump-style nativism and protectionism is that there's no one else to take up his mantle, Dungan said. Let me see. At home, his popularity has been sinking, hurt by the failure of his early unpopular changes to labor and tax law to revive the French economy. So he did. I'm not exactly totally sure how exactly he changed those things, but I'm imagining that he's been easing these laws up. A la Trump, deregulating things, in order to revive the economy. Same thing, basically. Macron's policies are seen to favor the wealthy, and poll after poll have shown the French electorate thinks the former banker is aloof and arrogant. So the grassroots protest movement was sparked by opposition to his environmental policy of hiking taxes on diesel and gasoline to fund incentives by cleaner cars. So the demands have expanded accordingly. Some want to restore the wealth tax, increasing pensions, raising the minimum wage, cutting the salaries of politicians, and even to Macron resigning and replacing the National Assembly with a People's Council. That's awesome. Polls show 3/4 of French support their demands, even if they disapprove of the violence that's accompanied many of the protests. So the thing is that the people there actually want democratic socialism, the thing that they've had in place for a long time. They want the services that their taxes pay. They pay high taxes. They want those services, restored. They want to get what they pay for. And it looks like basically Macron is a pro-business liberal, but he's doing Trump type things. He's cutting public services or social services, and making things easy for the wealthy, which is exactly what Trump is doing. The problem here is that people are so confused about what it is the government does, like in the United States, and people are so stupid, like the whole like QAnon thing has got like people just completely like, oh yeah, he's out there just cleaning up all this all this corruption, and meanwhile like Trump is just completely like allowing the floodgates to open for more corruption, and he's completely like setting up a situation in which all the social nets, the social services, the safety nets that we've had in place for a really long time, the democratic socialist things that we've had in place since Roosevelt, like we're on a path to have those things be gutted, ultimately just completely gutted. And are people going to wake up and realize this is happening? I mean, and not until they actually are, until we hit another wall economically, or until we hit another downturn and people don't have the safety nets anymore, and people are going to be like, oh, hey, well, wait, what happened? Meanwhile, like, people are completely, people who support Trump are completely like, oh, this is great, this is wonderful. Just because the economy is up for now, they think everything is great. And as long as he's like rah rah the military and go gas and oil and go in big business, but we keep getting like businesses shutting down, businesses moving out of the United States. About the only thing we have going for us is cheap gas right now. Anyway, so I just wanted to touch lightly on that. But it's very interesting that, the people there are at least know how to go out and get some results. Go out and cause major havoc and like scare the pants off of the government and scare the pants off the people in power, and they'll be like, oh, maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe these optics aren't great for us. So, and then moving into this story that supposedly the largest ever continuous oil and gas resource found in the United States. Briefly ran over this the other day, but apparently there's a huge oil and gas field underneath New Mexico. New Mexico and Texas. The problem is, a lot of people are going to be like, oh yes, this is great news. And we shouldn't be burning this, like everybody's going to just be like, huzzah, I'm sure Trump is just going to be like blowing this, smoke for days, that we've got all these oil and gas reserves and we're going to be energy independent. And, while we destroy the rest of the environment in the process of trying to drill this out. So it isn't blah, blah, blah. So apparently they're saying that it's enough oil to last 20 years. The curious thing is that 20 years ago, we had 20 years worth of oil and gas. And the same was true 20 years before that, and will probably be true in 20 years' time. This is because what the 20-year figure deals with are reserves, or rather proven reserves. There are oil and gas fields that have been found with 90% certainty that can be recovered given the economic, technological, and political conditions of today. Because oil and gas prospecting is incredibly expensive, the oil companies like to find enough reserves to last a generation and call it good. But it isn't as simple as that. Behind the proven reserves are the probable reserves, which are 50% certain, and the possible reserves, which are 10% certain. There tend to be a lot more of these than the proven reserves. Then there are the resources, which is what the Department of the Interior is talking about. Resources are large areas where oil and gas are known to be, but it hasn't been determined if it's economically practical to recover them yet. The yet is the big variable here, because a new surveying, drilling, and recovering technologies like fracking, as they're developed, resources can be rapidly shift up the ladder to proven reserves in the same way that wells that were once dry when they were 3/4 full are now productive again. This is effectively how the new giant oil and gas field was found. According to the Department of the Interior, the U.S. Geological Survey had already made assessments of the Permian Basin province, though the Wolfcamp Shale and Bone Spring Formation weren't originally included. The area is already highly productive in oil and gas, but it was only with the introduction of new technology and studying their effects on output that the size and the wealth of the resource could be assessed. How economical it will be to recover the oil and gas there has yet to be determined. In the 1980s, the Permian and the similar mature basins were not considered viable for producing large new recoverable reserves, said Dr. Jim Riley, USGS director. Today, thanks to advances in technology, the Permian Basin continues to impress in terms of resource potential. The results of this most recent assessment and that of the Wolfcamp Formation in the Midland Basin in 2016 are our largest continuous oil and gas assessments ever released. Knowing where these resources are located and how much exists is crucial to ensuring both our energy independence and energy dominance. So actually, what what a lot of people will be trumpeting as good news is super terrible news. Anyways, so at the Katowice, Poland, at the UN conference, here's an article from the Washington Post. That was awkward. At world's biggest climate conference, U.S. promotes fossil fuels. President Trump's top White House advisor on energy and climate stood before the crowd of some 200 people on Monday, tried to burnish the image of coal, the fossil fuel that powered the Industrial Revolution and now is a major culprit behind the climate crisis world leaders are meeting here to address. We strongly believe that no country should have to sacrifice economic prosperity or energy security in pursuit of the environmental sustainability, says Wells Griffith, Trump's advisor. Hey, it sounds like someone else, possibly with the name Nordhaus. Mocking laughter echoed through the conference room. A woman yelled, "These false solutions are a joke," and dozens of people erupted into chants of protest. The protest was a piece of theater, and so too was the United States' public embrace of coal and other dirty fuels at the event, otherwise dedicated to saving the world from the catastrophic effects of climate change. The standoff punctuated the awkward position the American delegation finds itself in as career bureaucrats seek to advance the Trump administration's agenda in an international arena aimed at cutting back on fossil fuels. Anyways, more silliness. I'm just kind of like floating through some articles on this one, y'all. Somebody sent me this from Zero Hedge. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez claims stopping climate change will end racism. It's an interesting one. She's a trip. I don't know. I often don't know what to think about her. I do like her a lot. Actually, I like her because she's kind of just like so over her head in some ways that she's just not afraid to say things that are way out of what's acceptable or what's commonplace, and people are just like, who the hell is this person? And it's kind of awesome. Like the good, she does it in an awesome, like kind of good, well-meaning way, as opposed to Trump. Like Trump does stuff way out of like the political or social norms, which I think sometimes it's incredibly like, whoa, so it's so absurd and abnormal, but it's almost refreshing because everybody's, always got this cloak of like, political, not political correctness, but, politically correct. As in, what I'm saying, socially acceptable. So, Trump is just like, I don't care about all these like norms. And on some, he's a ridiculous fool, but like, on some levels it's funny because people are just so offended all the time. But like she offends the shit out of people all the time because she just says random stuff. And but her heart is in the right place, I feel like. But she just, she just shocks people all the time. And, she's definitely a target for the right and for like everyone. And let's see, how she weathers, her first couple of years, I guess. My take on this though is that as weird as it is to tie climate change to identity politics, I guess is one way to put it, I feel like social justice is very deeply tied to climate change, and I feel like our economy exists to exploit people and resources, and it is the reason why we're in so much trouble. It is the reason why this system fails so many people, and we have tried to change the system or alter the system or, reshape the system, hopefully to treat people better. We don't really ever treat resources better, but we say that we want to. We say we want to treat the environment better, and sometimes we actually, pass laws and make regulations that do that. And I feel like that is hand in hand. If you're not, it's the mindset. The mindset is exploitation. The mindset is just taking things and doing things and not caring, how those things affect others. And that is, and a lot of those mechanisms rely on subtle and overt racism in order to operate. And a lot, for the most part, in the marketplace, that stuff is starting to go away. But it's still, obviously racism is still rampant. It's actually increasing. People are out there, just being blatant, loud and proud racists, and not caring a toss whether anybody anybody knows. They're like, you're a racist, and they're like, and so yeah, I mean, like, I feel like, I don't think it's going to end racism, because like, everyone's racist. All human beings are racist. I mean, all races are racist. All walks of life are racist. People do racist things. Although, I mean, white people have kind of cornered the market on racism. But I think that, if you get rid of economic injustice, if you get rid of environmental injustice, there's just going to be a lot of like inherent racism that's going to go away, because you're not trying to fuck over people for a profit. And you're going to have to actually treat people like human beings. And you're going to have to start treating the environment as important as human beings. And that's going to actually lend itself to, generating more equality. I would hope so. I would think so, because I don't think that you could actually have that happening. You couldn't have systemic racism happening and people go like, yeah, but let's fix climate change. But, but screw those people. Like, let's, but I'm sure people will try. I'm sure there will be, many instances of countries and people being very concerned about racism, but not necessarily anybody, only for themselves and not for anyone else. Maybe not, maybe so. I don't know if that made any sense. Did that make any sense at all? By the way, yesterday, just last thing, when I was talking about climate deniers being in the minority, I said, I think I explained that completely stupidly. So I just want to clear up what I wanted to say, so as not to sound stupid. Like, all Democrats think that climate change is real, and half of Republicans think that climate change is real. So that means half of this side of the spectrum think climate change is real. That's 25%. So you're definitely in the minority. Deniers are definitely in the minority. The majority of people of this country understand that climate change is an actual problem. They may not think it's a serious problem, but they understand what it is, and they understand that it's bad. It's a bad thing. So yeah, you guys are in the minority. Sorry, and you're going to get smaller. The minority is going to get smaller as things get worse. As weather extremes happen, as people start getting flooded out and stormed out and burnt out, and not having food and not having water, and they're going to start realizing, like, oh yeah, that's what this is. And that's already happening right now. A lot of Republicans are like, yeah, this is obviously climate change for real. So the deniers, you guys are getting smaller. You only exist on YouTube on weird, stupid channels that only stupid people watch. That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. I'm sorry if this was all over the place. I was just trying to cover a bunch of things. But anyways, little more of a freestyle video. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.